WNST's in life. I'm about to enter my 27th year of doing Baltimore sports radio. That'll begin on December the 13th. That'll be my 26th anniversary. I've known this guy a long time from over at Reitz Arena and running around over there at Loyola and, Jimmy Patsos and all the legends of all the former coaches and the Skip Prosters and everybody else over there. Joe Boylan and I bumped into each other, I think at a deli a couple of weeks ago, and exchanged some numbers. And lo and behold, the former AD at Loyola and Baltimore native now lives up in New Jersey, but he's calling radio for Rutgers up there, and it's been a little while since I've heard his voice. We welcome Joe Boylan back on to WNST. What's going on up there in the swamps of Jersey, Joe?
Well, fortunately, Nestor, I live in South Jersey near the beaches, so there are not too many swamps. Hey, congratulations on surviving in this media market for all those years. You deserve an amazing amount of credit, and you've been great for local Baltimore sports, so congratulations.
Well, Peter Angelos doesn't think so, but everybody else seems to like me just fine,
Some things never change.
Some things never change. I mean, we're going into that offseason, and I know, you're still a big Oriole guy, right?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, so, it used to dominate the offseason here, but now there's a little bit of breathing room for the Caps and for the Wizards and for local college basketball and for Ravens bye weeks and all that. How'd you get the Rutgers gig, dude? That's an interesting thing there, and I guess it really does keep you fresh in basketball. I think was always your first love, but having played it as well. But Big Ten basketball, Maryland in the Big Ten, Rutgers, it's a different era than the Joe Boylan Loyola era, right?
Yeah, well, I coached at Rutgers from the mid-'70s to the mid-'80s, and then I was assistant AD there before I got the best job in the world, which was athletic director at Loyola for 20 years, from 90 to 2010. So when I got out of coaching at Rutgers in '85, I was assistant AD for academics. I did the radio. So a couple of years ago, one of my former players, Eddie Jordan, called me and said, "Hey, the guy who's doing the color is retiring. Would you like to do it?" So I said, yeah. So this is my third year, and it's been fun. And the Big Ten is it's different, both for Rutgers and Maryland. Maryland basketball, obviously, because Gary left things in good shape, and Coach Turge's done a nice job. They're a lot more successful. Rutgers at the bottom, they've got a long way to go. But it's an interesting league, that's for sure.
Well, you say Rutgers is at the bottom and they got a long way to go. I don't want to be disrespectful to Rutgers. I mean, they are what they are. The record stands for it. But, why is it that there's a struggle? I've often thought that about Penn State in basketball. Like, why can't they get better, I mean, and Maryland's trying to do that on the football side. Maybe we'd say the same thing as, why can't Maryland get better at football? Well, they turned Cole Fieldhouse into a football house. They've got an apparel company outfitting them in all sort of clown outfits every other Saturday. You don't even know what color they're going to wear or what they're going to look like. And I know they're trying. In the case of Rutgers, there was that period of time with Schiano where the football got better, but just in general, they are the University of New Jersey. It always does sort of make me scratch my head to say, why isn't that better?
Well, Nestor, I'll tell you a good story. I've gotten to know Tom Izzo a little bit and over the years, and I asked him, I guess last year when I was at East Lansing, and he said, a lot of it has to do with consistency. It starts at the top with a president, and they've had a series of presidents, and the presidents actually come to tailgates and know the players, football players by name, which is incredible. And you have ADs who are in place, who are really good, and they leave them alone. And you have like D'Antano and Izzo, and they just leave them alone. Now, you got to be successful, but I think at Rutgers they've never really had leadership at the top. I think they had like 4 ADs in the last 6 years, but now they've got an AD by the name of Pat Hobbs who's really done a good job. And in a year or so, Rutgers facilities were very, very poor, but they just built an $8 million football facility. It just opened, and it's really nice. I mean, it's not Ohio State or Penn State or
Michigan,
right. But it's really nice. I mean, that's all you need. And I think they're building up a practice facility for basketball. So they got good leadership. The basketball coach there now with a new AD who he hired, they're giving him the resources. They put more money into basketball in the last 2 years than they probably have in the last 20. So we'll see. So when you start from the bottom, the very bottom, and then they've had a few instances. Eddie Jordan did a great job. He kind of came into the program when it was really a disaster. As you might remember, there was a coach by the name of Mike Rice. They had some issues with him, and nobody wanted to get near Rutgers. Eddie did a good job kind of smoothing that out over a couple years and made it a basketball job again. So,
but it would seem to me you could recruit New Jersey to New York City and get kids to come there to some degree just because you got a chance to go beat Maryland, you got a chance to go beat Michigan State, Indiana, all of the above, that opportunity is there from a recruiting standpoint, right?
Yeah, I think it is, but recruiting certainly has changed since when I was in it, and I remember going out to watch my grandson play 2 years ago, in Anaheim, California, and then Vegas, and it was like, wow. Kids today, because of AAU, they travel all over the country, and players don't stay home as much. There's no question about that. That's hard to do, but there are a lot of good players. You don't have to get the best players. Wisconsin's a very good example of how you get good players, not from really very far away. And also, if you look at Michigan State, where do they recruit from? I mean, their recruiting basically is it's a couple hundred miles. They really do a good job with that. Now, Kentucky and Duke are in a different situation. It'll be interesting to see what happens when that one and done rule changes, Nestor. That's going to change college basketball, I think, for the better, and that's probably going to happen in a year or two, I think.
Joe Boylan is our friend. He is on the line, longtime athletic director, 19 years, at Loyola. Left a number of years ago, now doing Rutgers color commentating and living on the Jersey Shore up in the swamps of Jersey, just south of there, more like the swamps of Philly at some point. This portion of our WNST programming brought to you by our friends at Deli-ish on Wise Avenue in Dundalk, New York-style deli with Reuben's corned beef, the lean corned beef, and legit sandwiches like the Curly Fryer. Tasty pickles, they're catering in during the holiday season. Go check them out at delibaltimore.com. Learn more or stop down and taste the Deli-ish menu down on Wise Avenue in Dundalk. Also brought to you by our friends at D&L Window Tinting. 26 years now of tinting everything. Cars, boats, businesses. They put the shades on the sun and they take the squint away. They're in Parkville and in White Marsh, and you can find them online at D&L Window Tinting. Interestingly enough, Joe Boylan doing the Rutgers stuff. Joe, we're the voice of Coppin State here this year. And, I had Juan Dixon on earlier in the week, and it was such a, from Maryland having Jimmy Patsos going to Loyola, and then Juan going up to Coppin State. There's plenty of sort of Maryland basketball stuff going on, but Coppin's actually playing Rutgers this week, right?
Yeah, they play him on Sunday, and it's good for Juan Dixon. He'll do a good job there. My old friend and somebody you know very well, Fang Mitchell, was there for years. And
speaking of Philadelphia, right?
Yeah, right. That's right. Gloucester County. When I first met him a long time ago, we had some beers over the years. A good guy, and you talk about the Big Ten. I think it's a real challenge for Maryland and Rutgers, just because both schools financially have challenges. I think Under Armour and Kevin Plank certainly has really helped Maryland a lot, no question about it. But, that's a big change for Maryland, just the mindset from the ACC to the Big Ten. It's hard. I think it's really difficult. I think Coach Turgeon's, he's got a good team again this year. I think they'll probably be in the middle of the pack, or maybe the upper middle, third, fourth, or fifth. And but it takes a while for all that to settle in. I think. And football is hard, Rutgers football Shannon was good, and then they fell off. But Coach Ash has done a good job. He's won 3 in a row, just beat Maryland, which is a good win for them. But I think, how do you evaluate the success of those programs? Do you evaluate it by saying, can we beat Ohio State? I don't think so. That's not fair. So I think how you evaluate coaches has to be. You have to rethink that when you're in a league and when you come into a league late. So it'll be interesting to see this year. Obviously, Michigan State's very good. Tonight will be an interesting test with 4 of the best teams in the country going at it in Chicago. And, I think Purdue's good again. Minnesota's good. Northwestern's good. And speaking of local teams, my old school, Gigi Smith is doing a good job there. They had the ball with a chance to tie under a minute at Northwestern, so he's going to have a good year. And and locally, when you look around Baltimore now, Ryan's done a really good job at UNBC.
Yeah, I saw him a couple weeks ago. UNBC had a big kickoff down in Fells Point with Gary was there, Dave Odom was there. It was Feinstein was there. It was an interesting little chat evening. But that program has awakened for sure down there, and they got the new facility opening here soon, a couple weeks out.
Yeah, that's really good. I think, and Ryan's done a nice job. Of course, I've known Dave forever, and since he was at 5-star, and so we've been friends. And Towson's done a nice job under Pat. I mean, they're both teams, UNBC and Towson, 20-win seasons last year. So that's a good sign. I think Loyola, Gigi has a chance to win the Patriot League this year. And, obviously Juan Dixon at Coppin, that helps. And Morgan's better. So, local basketball, of course, Maryland is the giant. And I think, they've got a new, the freshman, Bruno Fernando, I think, is 6'10", 240. I think, from hearing Coach Turgeon at the press conference in the Big Ten in New York, he was really very high on him to give him some toughness. So they should be very good too. And it's interesting with everything that's going on in college basketball. You look back, and of course, Gary Williams and I, disclaimer, have been friends since the '60s. But the way Gary ran his program now is the way people, I think, are going to have to start running their programs.
You mean clean? You mean
clean.
Where the FBI's not knocking on the door at some point? I mean, this is a scandalous thing. I mean, I'd love to get your thoughts on that, because through all the years, I mean, I've always, as long as I've been on the radio, I've known how dirty the business is and the soft underbelly, and all the problems that we've seen, whether it was Huggins, Boeheim, Patino, name any of those guys. There was always this sort of shadow and a cloud that sort of followed the whole sport. That I think the fans, I think the students, I think administrations just thought, well, it's dirty pool, and we got to play dirty in order to win around here. And there's a lot of money at stake and a lot of prestige, and people like winning at whatever cost. We know that.
Well, I think the issue, it's a big difference now. People always complain about the NCAA, and I think that the one issue I've always had with the NCAA is when they were able to justify charges against coaches, that the penalties were never they just weren't very tough. They were always worried about getting sued. And my point to one of their investigators years ago was, well, if you get sued, now you're in court. Now when those people sit on, if you want to go to court, now it's a perjury issue. But for example, a good example is Bruce Pearl, who's at Auburn. I mean, he had to sit out for 3 years, but Auburn hired him, and he's right back, doing some stuff. Who knows?
Well, I can't think of anybody that's ever been blackballed, right? I mean, just out and out. I mean, Todd had problems in Michigan. A lot of the guys that have had problems, they've not gone to jail. Maybe they've sacrificed some salary or a year or two of work.
Oh, yeah.
But for the most part, in my lifetime, no one has been forced. And if they get forced out, they get a job and go on television, right? Or get a job in the media one way or another. So, there hasn't been like a real career wrecker in that way, where we're seeing the pictures like O.J. Simpson in an orange suit. That hasn't happened.
No, and I don't think it will happen, because you're not. These aren't criminal. I mean, you're not causing bodily harm or anything else. You're just creating a system that makes it difficult. Now, I would say this: most coaches are very straight or clean. I mean, you talk to people around the country, and obviously at my age, I know a lot of them. They do things the right way. It's just not worth it. They're not going to put themselves in jeopardy for a player. They're just not going to do it. I mean, that's not who they are, and they're not going to do it. I think where it becomes difficult is when there are enough programs, and now I'm not just talking about high-level programs. I get mid-level programs who are willing to just kind of push the envelope. Then it makes it hard to compete. And when you're being judged against those programs, I think it really is a challenge. And I hope from this committee, we'll see if anything comes out of this. I mean, I think the NCAA got some issues, because basketball, to me, football, it drives it now because of the money. But I think football, you may disagree with this, but I think football may have reached its peak a year ago. I think with all the stuff in the NFL and everything else. So college basketball is kind of the neat thing. How do we keep that clean? And I remember my father took me to a game in Madison Square Garden in 1951 to see the CCNY team that had won the NIT and the NCAA the year before. And 2 months later, that was that big scandal. And that was just shaving points and gambling. And so far, you've seen a few of those things.
And that was a different era, literally.
That was a different era.
Sure.
But I think now there's so much money involved in the sport. Just for one example, there's no way that a basketball coach should be given a contract from a shoe company for $2.5 million, quote, to the school, and the school only gets like $500,000, and he keeps $2 million. I mean, that's the school's fault, though. That's the president's fault for signing off on those kind of contracts. So we'll see what happens from all this. I think something should happen, and hopefully it's good. What I would say is, if you're really pushing the envelope, you got to think now. You got to really think: is it worth it? And if you stop it, it makes it easier.
Joe Boylan joining us here from the swamps of Jersey. He's calling Rutgers basketball after 2 decades at Loyola, and of course, a illustrious childhood here at Milford Mill. And man, you escaped to New Jersey. It's sure good life up there. Are you enjoying Jersey? Well, yeah,
we live right near Stone Harbor and Avalon. We live about 4 miles off the beach, so it's been good. And it's it's interesting we're talking about college basketball now, because I have one grandson who's 6'4", and good player. He's third team All-State in California. Really good shooter. And he's going to play for Jimmy Patsos at Siena. He wanted to come back east, and his dad was a coach for a long time. So I've gotten to see that side of the AAU and everything else, and you can't put that genie back in the bottle. So I think what you're going to see is, hopefully, AAU programs are going to become a little more straighter, and they're not going to do things that they've been doing. And then hopefully at the next level, they'll just say, hey, it's not worth it. I mean, we'll see how the whole Patino thing plays out, how the Bruce Pearl things plays out. When you're dealing with college basketball, it's not like football where you have 20 assistants. You only have a few assistants. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays. Hopefully, it'll make the game better for everybody. And when the one and done is pushed out, I think it'll become a better game.
Well, let's be honest, Joe. The reason rules are set up to begin with is to make it fair. You know what I mean? Every time this happens, everyone is getting cheated, right? I mean, so, I guess except for the kid and the handler who's, taking the untraceable cash or whatever. But I would think in an era of text messages, all the same problem the guy down on Pennsylvania Avenue is going to have with all his minions. These things don't happen in a vacuum in the new world. They all happen digitally, and all of that's traceable. And, I have a feeling the FBI will get to the bottom of all of it, right?
Yeah, I think the big question will be, just like in 1951, 52 with Hogan and Manhattan, it was a different era, that they had to stop because they had other things to do. It was New York in the 50s, so it wasn't just college basketball scandal. You had other things. And my father had a good friend that worked in that office, and he said at the end, they basically just said, hey, we just can't go any further, because we got other things to do. Now, hopefully, FBI will continue to pursue this. And I think you're right. It comes down to fairness. Whether you're playing at Loyola, or whether you're playing at Towson, or whether you're playing at Coppin, or whether you're playing at Maryland, you want it to be fair. And that's why I think when people look back on this era, what Gary did, getting the 2 Final Fours and winning a national championship, doing it his way, is going to stand out because he did it the right way, and he would not bend. This is who he was. He would not change his principles, and Maryland was the better for it, and college basketball was the better for it. And I also think one other comment is what Jay Wright has done at Villanova. He's done it the right way, and he doesn't get one and done. He builds teams. He gets really good players, and him winning the national title, I thought, was a great thing for college basketball. He has a nice practice facility. I was there watching practice last year, and I said to him, this is really a nice facility, but it's not over the top. And he made a good point. He said, Joe, we have everything we need. And obviously they're redoing their building now, but so I think there's college basketball is fun. It should be fun. It's a great game, and as I said, I hope when all this is done and the NBA and the NCAA, I think they realize that they've got to solve this issue. I think all the coaches want the one and done. And then I think another good rule is if you sign to go to a school, you got to stay for 2 years. You have to stay for 2 years. After that, you can transfer. And that kind of, hopefully that'll get the education back into it right now. Right now, as Gary said, nobody talks about education. They just don't anymore at the highest level. So
Well, it was almost hypocrisy to hear him talk about it, but that's for. Listen, next time we get together, we'll do that. I know Maryland's getting together with Rutgers this season. We'll get together with you, and certainly we're going to be into the heart of the Big Ten schedule here before we blink. So I'm looking forward to it. Happy travels to you up there in Jersey. It was great running into you. Great having you on the program. We'll circle back again soon, Joe.
All right, Nestor, good luck to you. Congratulations again.
Almost 26 years. Joe Boylan, 19 years at Loyola here in Maryland, now up on the swamps of Jersey doing some Rutgers basketball as well, and we'll continue to check back in with him. You can find me out on the BuyAToyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from wherever you happen to be. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That's all powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. And, of course, if you're around on Thursday between 3 and 5, Dennis Colatzos will be here with the SSV on WNST driving you home. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard, where they sponsor our WNST tech service. It is our best service. Breaking news coming to you first, all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports. In Baltimore, catch a little breath and exhale and talk a little baseball here as the general managers meetings get going on the front end of the winter meetings. And lo and behold, it looks like Zach Britton will be dangled by the Orioles. This guy covers the offseason as well as the in-season, was running around with the Astros and the Dodgers, and he's catching his breath. He is the national MLB columnist for Bleacher Report and Turner Sports. You can hear him on Sirius XM. We always love having Scott Miller on to talk some baseball, and you can find him out on Twitter at Scott Miller BBL. What's going on? No off season for you baseball beat types, right?
No, Nestor, you're right. It's pretty much year round. The general manager meetings come a week after the World Series, and the winter meetings are only about a little less than a month away. They start December 10th in Orlando, and by the time the winter meetings are over, you basically have Christmas, New Year's, and then after that, you get ready for spring training.
Well, in the case of the Orioles, we've been talking about this for 3 months, 4 months now, beginning with the holding pattern of we're going to go get Hellickson, we're going to go trade for a shortstop, we're going to try to go all in. I mean, after taking bids on Britton and Brock for a week or two in early July. The one thing with the Orioles, and I've been at this a quarter of a century, Scott, since the old man bought the team and wrecked it, there never really feels like there's a strategy here. Showalter and Duquette are dangling, Adam Jones and Machado are dangling, and all we're hearing is, well, they're going to go all in this year. I don't even know what that means when you have no pitching.
Yeah, they've got Kevin Gausman and Dylan Bundy, and the rotation's wide open. Obviously, you're not going to go get 3 free agent starters, maybe one, but obviously, given the Orioles' history, are they really going to pony up $150 million for some stud free agent? I would expect they'll shop for lesser starting pitchers, at least lesser expense-wise. But, you also make a good point regarding are they going to be all in or not all in when you say Showalter and Duquette are dangling. Without a general manager and a manager signed long-term, it becomes survival. And, those guys, what are they going to do? Pull the plug and say we're going to go in a rebuilding process when they don't have more than a year or whatever it is in front of them. They're going to try to win now. And it's a tightrope walk. There's no question because, as you said, the rotation is, it was bad last year and they've got all kinds of openings. So whether they end up trading Zach Britton, trying to leverage him for another starting pitcher or two, I'm guessing that's probably their best avenue.
Well, and in the case of the Orioles and the dangling part of this with Showalter and Duquette, Duquette tried to get out the side door to Toronto. Angelos wouldn't let him leave. Then there's the conjecture about Buck maybe taking over as a general manager or doing something long-term here, not to mention with whatever Brady Anderson's role, Brady Angelos, as I call him around here, whatever his role would be in all of this. But it's pretty obvious that Dan Duquette's not going to be here 52 weeks from now. And for me, it's pretty obvious Manny Machado's not going to be here 52 weeks from now. So I don't know what the strategy is, but until you get that worked out, you're looking at something that could look like a bare cupboard here, 12, 15 months from now heading into the 19 season. And it's really, really a struggle from a fan standpoint to have sat here for a decade and a half and watched the Yankees and the Red Sox just slap the Orioles around. It feels like it's heading in that direction again, and that's the disappointment of a guy like me that likes to talk baseball here.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Yankees obviously last year rebounded way quicker than people thought. I mean, everybody knew 2 summers ago when they finally made the decision, okay, we're going to get rid of the veterans, Alex Rodriguez, Mark Teixeira, Brian McCann. It was like finally Brian Cashman was given the keys to the car and allowed to design a team the way he wanted to. I think around baseball, people recognize the Yankees are rebuilding. Well, doggone, they rebuilt so quick. I mean, a year later, here they are. And you're right, the Yankees' long-term prospects look really good. Boston's in a little bit of a transition, but they look really good. I mean, they obviously won the division, then fired their manager. So they've got a new manager in Alex Cora coming in, but they've still got Chris Sale, they've still got Andrew Benintendi and Mookie Betts and all those guys, Jackie Bradley Jr. So, yeah, I mean, again, with the Yankees and the Red Sox and trying to climb up that American League East mountain to get to the top when they're the 2 kings of the hill.
Machado sits behind all of this, right? And during the summer when it looked like, are you in or are you out? Do you want to deal Machado? There's never been any thought, but I think in a normal organization where the owner's not 90 years old and sort of out to lunch and the GM and the manager aren't in this crazy 9-month dangling period, in a normal organization, you would be considering dealing Manny Machado, but either that or give him $300 million, and I don't think he would take it anyway at this point. The Machado thing, and then how it's tied to Scope, because this should be the offseason where if you want to keep Jonathan Scope around here and make him your centerpiece instead of Chris Davis or Manny Machado in 2020, 21, 22, this would be the time to pull the trigger on Scope. I don't even hear that being talked about around here, Scott.
Well, that gets back to your plan or your point, I think, Nestor, that's accurate about what is the plan. Is there a plan? And you're right. Where Machado's concerned, you have to look at it and say, do you want to lose him for nothing a year from now? Well, the answer to that should be no, so it should be either conversations to re-sign him or trade him. And, I don't think they have to necessarily act rash right now, but most likely you're going to get more from Machado at the winter meeting, say this winter sometime, than you are next July at the trade deadline, because you don't know which teams are going to contend next year. You don't know, what they're going to have to give you. I kind of look at it like the White Sox a year ago, when they dealt Chris Sale to Boston at the winter meetings. They made a decision. We think we can get more for him in the off season than in July. And I think it's probably similar with Machado. So are they going to line up a bunch of suitors, 10 or 12 teams this winter, and then go to the winter meetings and take some monster offer? Or are they going to not do that and take him into the season? Well, right now indications seems like they're going to stick with him and take him into the season. Well, if you're going to do that, you better start talking, be ready to pony up for a big extension.
Well, and then there's Adam Jones sort of dangling as well as their franchise guy. He's still going to get a lot of money, isn't he? I mean, at the end of this, if he hits the market next year, he's going to get 3 more years and $50 or $60 million, right?
Oh, yeah, no question. So then that goes back to your point probably about Scope, and, are you going to identify him as a guy, that if you lose Machado, if you lose Adam Jones, that he's going to be a guy that you can hang on to for a few years? Some decisions have to be made, plain and simple.
Well, and they're also still going to pay the punishment of the Chris Davis thing, right? I mean, that sits behind all of this, that the old man decided sort of the wildcat and give him $130 million when no one else was offering literally anything. And then they gave Trumbo more money as well. At least the Jimenez money's behind them. But the Chris Davis thing really does sit at the foundation of all of this because he's going to be on this team in 19 and 20 and 21 and 22. And it doesn't feel like there's going to be a whole lot of productivity there.
Yeah, and that's a signing you make if you say, okay, we still got money left over to devote in other areas. The thing with baseball, and we just saw this, Nestor, in the World Series with the Astros and the Dodgers. The game's gotten younger, and teams that win have versatile, athletic players around the diamond. I mean, look at the Astros with he's only 5'6", but Jose Altuve. Look at the way Alex Bregman played third base. Dodgers. Look at Cody Bellinger, won the Rookie of the Year award yesterday unanimously. I mean, he can play a great first base. He can go out to the outfield. He can move around. The Cubs a couple years ago, I know he's not a young guy, Ben Zobrist, but Joe Madden shuffled him all around the diamond. He shuffled Chris Bryant all around the diamond. Bryant plays third base, center field. So the way to win today is young players because, again, we're past the steroid era. We're past there's no amphetamines in the game anymore. So youth plays today, both in terms of the long grind of the season and tied into that as a result, into the athleticism that's demanded in today's game. And, that's back to Chris Davis. That's the problem there is, it's nice to hit home runs, but, you've got to have athletes all over the diamond.
Scott Miller joining us here from Bleacher Report and Turner Sports. You can find him at Scott Miller BBL. Last thing for you, just on the Astros, we talk so much about the Orioles and burning it down and trading away Machado that if I own the team because I'm a younger guy and I've got more foresight to say I'd rather have 5 good years than one half-assed year and then we have no idea what's going to happen into the future. The Astros burned the thing down and were rewarded for it in the end.
Yeah, they were, and that's obviously you look at it, and that's a question baseball has to deal with today, and that is, there looks to be right now an incentive for teams to do that, where team A and B, if they don't think there's hope, let's just strip it all down. I mean, there is an argument to be made that if you're looking at your team honestly, and you evaluate it as, well, we're like basically a 500 team, 81 and 81 or, 78 and 82 or 78 and 84, then what's the point, right? You either want to be at the top, running with the top dogs, or you want to be at the bottom where you can start getting some draft picks and resuscitate your franchise. And, it worked for Houston. We've seen it in the National League in the last couple of years. Basically, the San Diego Padres have done that recently. I mean, the Padres played with 3 Rule 5 picks last year on the roster. On the Major League roster, 3 of the 25 players were Rule 5 picks all season long. I mean, that was unprecedented. Philadelphia's worked to do that, and, the Phillies looked like they started to rise last year. Now, nobody that's tanked has had it as bad as Houston, those 300-loss years in a row. But, to a lesser degree, Atlanta, San Diego, Philadelphia, Milwaukee have done it, and there's some hope on the horizon for them.
Scott, always a pleasure to visit with you. We'll continue to check in here during the offseason. Thanks for making some time. We'll be following you out on Twitter as well as at Bleacher Report. Knock 'em dead here at the winter meetings. We'll see what the Orioles come up with, pal.
All right.
There you go, Scott Miller, BBL, the way to find him out on Twitter as well. This portion of our WNST programming brought to you by our friends at Compass Point Golf Course in Pasadena. I know it is the baseball offseason. You get your winter jacket out or get a parka out. Hey, as long as there's not snow on the course, they're going to open it up down there at Compass Point in Pasadena. Great events, friendly folks, craft beers, and don't forget the turkey shoot next Friday. You can learn more at compasspointgolf.com. Also, a shout out to the king Paul King over King Discount Liquors. Lottery, beer, booze, and the best prices in Baltimore are always in Rosedale. I got to get over there, get some Malbec. If you see Paul King behind the cage over there, tell him I'm looking for him before Thanksgiving next week. Give the King a ring. King Discount Liquors. Been with us for 15 years. Very appreciative of their sponsorship. Buy your booze, your liquor, and your lottery tickets over there. Cash in and win, as Paul King says in the TV commercials, but he's not on Facebook. You can find me out on the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear from wherever you happen to be. Our morning newspaper ships digitally. We save trees. No paper involved. 7 a.m. It comes directly to your email inbox free of charge and brought to you by Planet Fitness, where it's always $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life, and they're always judgment-free. That's why we love Planet Fitness. There's one right in your neighborhood. Our neighborhood here on Thursday will be filled with Dennis Colatzos from Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. He'll be driving you home with the SSV on WNST. They also sponsor our WNST text service. That is our best service. Breaking news directly to your phone the minute it happens to your text. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. I'm headed off to Green Bay, Lambeau Field, all that good stuff. We'll have full coverage all weekend long on our social. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. And don't forget, I am a very available individual. Nasty at WNST.net finds me for all complaints and criticism and praise. I prefer the praise. Don't we all? I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.